So Megan, tell me some highlights from 2024.
2024 was a big year for me. This time last year, I was talking to the producers of a documentary about my family on the CW network. And right at the beginning of the year, I think just a couple days after New Year's, they flew me out to New York for an interview on that documentary. And it's still there. It's part of the series Crime Nation. And there's a whole episode on the Lori Vallow Daybell case. They brought me in mainly because I was the only one in the family that was talking about the church perspective from an outsider's perspective. I got to explain a lot about why the temple is so important to LDS culture. And I got to explain a lot about how Mormon families function within the Mormon system and how Mormon families are really influenced by that patriarchal order and just the dynamics of that and how that would have looked in Lori Vallow's life growing up. And so they obviously didn't put in everything from the whole interview. I think I was with them for about 3 hours. It was really an emotional interview, and it was awesome because I got to just get a lot of things out. And even though they didn't put it all in there, it was really cathartic for me to do that. That's how 2024 started for me. So the documentary is on the CW network, and they have an app you can download and you can watch all their content for free. Of course, they put ads in it. But the name of the series is called Crime Nation. And then they do episodes on different cases. And I can't remember what the specific episode was called, but I'll send you a link. And then really right after that was when I decided to launch a podcast. And so I started working on that and developing episodes. And my podcast launched on April 6th of 2024. And it's called The Midlife Revolution. And now I'm in my second season. I started my second season right after summertime. And so my seasons don't go by years. They just go by number of episodes for me. So there are about 20 episodes in the first season. I'm working on posting my 12th, 13th, and 14th episode for the second season. And I'm already planning season 3. And because of the Chad Daybell trial, which also happened in April, my YouTube channel started getting more notoriety and recognition. So I've done a lot to grow my podcast and my YouTube channel. I'm just over 9,000 followers right now, which is so cool. I'm so grateful to my subscribers and channel members for creating that community there, because that's been a huge part of my year.
Okay. And so a year before, you had been on Mormon Stories.
Yes.
As a guest.
Yes. So in 2023,
May of 2023.
May 1st of 2023 was my first Mormon Stories episode where I talked about growing up with Lori Vallow, and I told my Mormon story, or at least some of it, because I had to overlap it with what was happening with Lori in the case and everything.
And so you saw how easy it was, the podcast from John, and how quickly he could get up to a couple hundreds of thousands of subscribers.
I didn't.
Only 18 years by that time.
I didn't see it as easy at all. I was like, this is new territory for me. I didn't know anything about podcasting or YouTube. I made a ton of mistakes. I wasted a lot of time and a lot of money, but I was really grateful to John DeLynn and my friend Lauren Mathias at Hidden True Crime, who also interviewed me. She was my first big interview was with her. And then she recommended me to John DeLynn. But they've both been really excellent mentors, helping me navigate this space and giving me advice when I do stuff that's dumb.
That's right. I committed to just wasting time instead of money doing my podcast. And I hope I haven't wasted too many other people's time. I also say that if you have insomnia, my show's a good cure for it. So.
I love your show. I think you're doing a great thing, and I'm happy for you. I'm glad You're here.
So after you started your channel, anything significant happened in the middle of the summer for you?
So the biggest two things this year for me are that I turned 50. My oldest daughter also turned 30. And she invited me to come and celebrate her birthday with her, since our birthdays are about a week apart. While I was visiting with her and her husband and my grandson and 2 of my other daughters, they announced to us that they are having another baby in April. So grandchild number 2 is on their way. And when we initially were together, they had taken a blood test and found out that it was a girl. And I have a grandson already, so this was going to be a cute little, girl boy. And then just a few weeks ago, they found out that the blood test was wrong and it's actually a boy.
Well, yeah, I don't know very much about blood tests, but that is interesting. And then I got to know you, and I interviewed you in the late summer.
Yeah.
And then because I thought you had such good star quality, I wanted to bring you in on an opportunity to interview John DeLynn. And so that was kind of fun, where you and me and Maven got to interview John. And so that was pretty cool.
That was awesome. I loved that. He gave us all some really good advice in that episode.
There you go. And how's things been the last few months? I understand that you ended up changing your career a little bit.
Yeah, so I actually lost my job in July, and didn't even really think of that as anything that I would talk about for like the whole recap of the year. But that's a pretty big deal. I had been at that company for about 3.5 years, and it was a pretty toxic situation, actually. So I was, I sort of knew that things were probably coming to an end. So I started putting some things in place, and starting my podcast was part of that exit strategy. I was thinking maybe this will be good for my book and whatever else. And so I started making a little bit of money through sponsorships on my podcast, but it wasn't paying the bills yet. So I seriously did consider going back into investment advising or some other fuel trading field, like where I was working before. Sometime around the end of October, I just made the decision that I was never going to work for anyone else again. And so I decided to make this my full-time gig. And I found another sponsor for my podcast that is helping me to make some investments in higher quality content. And so I'm really excited about what this next year is going to bring.
What do we have to look forward to this coming year? Do you have any big guests coming up, or what's the focus of this year?
This coming year, I'm going to focus a lot more on all of the studying and research that I've done on narcissism, because I grew up surrounded by narcissistic people. I was in a 22-year coercive control marriage. And I just want to bring more awareness to the idea that people can have narcissistic traits without having a full-blown personality disorder. And we can find these traits in almost anyone, almost anywhere. Like all of us have the tendency sometimes to be jealous or to be spiteful. But I really believe that by recognizing those things in ourselves, we can learn to recognize those things in other people and learn to defend against it. So I have an e-course that's launching on January 7th. It's going to be a live webinar where it's going to be 8 modules of 60 to 90 minutes of really personalized content for people who find themselves in relationships or situations where they're dealing with manipulative people, and helping them to have the knowledge and the skills and the tools to deal with those people, especially if you're in a situation where you can't just leave the relationship. Like if it's a boss or a coworker, or if you can't end your marriage, or if you can't leave your relationship. A lot of people need skills and tools and just words to say, and how to protect themselves and protect their energy from being drained by manipulative people. So that's going to be a big focus in the coming year. I really want to help more people learn how to recognize and defend against that type of behavior.
Yeah, and so I don't have any money to sponsor your show or anything like that, but we could do an infomercial in a couple of days for that show, and we'll figure out the logistics of that. Thanks, Megan, and everybody enjoy their new year.
Well, the support that you've given me, Gene, is worth a lot more than money. So I really appreciate you having me on and letting me participate in the panel and meet all of your audience members too. That's been awesome.
Yeah. And Tuesdays with Tim, I tell people, like, we enjoy talking so much. We don't even care if anybody watches it. In fact, when we end the show, a lot of times we're still talking for another hour after the show's over. We should just hit the record button again and just do another show and put it in the bank.
Yeah. And do the behind the scenes for members only or something.
Right. All right. Thanks a lot. And everybody have a good new year.
Happy New Year.